Think back to the last time you had your heart broken. Hurts, doesn't it? That pain you felt isn't imaginary, and it's part of a powerful system that helped shape us.
If we deleted love, I think that the ramifications would actually be the end of our species.
And it's not until the last few decades that we've been able to start understanding how feeling and losing love, that pain we talked about, actually changes our brain. Stick to the end, and we'll show you what science tells us about recovering from a broken heart. Every ancient culture has described that fierce pull we feel towards someone special. For thousands of years, the study of love was confined to poets and philosophers like Rumi or Plato.
The context in which they were studying love was not the neurobiology of love, because that was the point at which we didn't even really realize that emotions are seated in the brain. And if you think about it, when you feel something and you ask people to point to where they feel it on their body, most people don't point to their head.
Science didn't start taking love seriously until the mid-20th century. And in the 1950s, psychologists noticed a link between how children's early bonds with their parents could become the templates for how they love as adults. That's known as attachment theory. But people didn't really understand love's impact on the brain until we could see inside it. You might have seen these brain scans in other science videos or in the news. But what are we actually looking at here?
The fMRI is looking at blood flow. There's a little bit of iron in your blood that is detected by the scanner. That's what's detected. And blood flow increases in the brain when there's more activity. So that movement is detected.
Dr. Brown, who you just heard from, was part of the first team to study the brains of people in the early stages of romantic love. That intense honeymoon period right at the start. Then they studied people's brains while they looked at photos inside an fMRI machine. One picture was of someone they'd recently fallen in love with, and the other was of someone they were familiar with but didn't have strong feelings about.
Most important thing that we found in everyone, without exception, was activity in this part of the brain here. And this is actually the beginning of romantic love. This is what told us that romantic love is a drive, not just a euphoric feeling, not just an emotion.
When looking at the photo of a romantic partner, their scans showed activity here, in the ventral tegmental area. The VTA is a key part of the brain's reward and motivation system. That's the same system that reminds you to drink and eat. It pumps out a feel-good hormone called dopamine, which you've probably heard about, which pushes you towards things you need to survive.
This is a survival system. Nature gave us these systems to be addicted to each other for reproduction, for protection. You're oriented completely toward the other person. It's like hunger or thirst.
And just like the people in her study, Dr. Brown's VTA lit up after meeting her second husband. She took this scan of her brain and gave it to him as a first wedding anniversary gift, so he could literally see her love for him in her brain. And that love, Dr. Brown's, yours, or mine, doesn't just take over our thoughts. It can change how our brains process our sense of identity. When we think about ourselves or reflect on how others see us, we use a region called the medial prefrontal cortex. When we think about strangers, the brain tends to rely more on other social judgment circuits instead. That can change when a stranger becomes your partner. And scientists saw this in a study in 2013. People were shown statements about themselves, like, people say Laura is kind, and the area we use to process our sense of self lit up. Then they showed them the same statements, but about their partner, and the same area lit up. Not the one we used to think about others. This suggests the brain starts using similar neural patterns for our partners as it does for ourselves, treating them more like a part of who we are.
When you form a bond, there's these molecular changes in the brain, and those molecular changes help to maintain the bond over time. They're incredibly long-lasting, and they become literally a part of our biology.
Two key brain chemicals used in social bonding are oxytocin, often called the love hormone, and vasopressin, which helps shape bonding, vigilance, and protective instincts. Together, These neuropeptides help shape how we bond, attach, and show up in our relationships. Oxytocin is part of the same system that helps us give birth, bond with family, care for friends, and stay connected to the people around us. And studies suggest these strong social bonds can have a profound effect on our health. Oxytocin can reduce inflammation and help promote cellular growth, while in general, social connection is great at regulating stress and supporting our immune system.
Having really strong social bonds increases your likelihood that you'll survive from just about anything, whether that be cancer, depression, etc. And it overall is the number one predictor of longevity. So if you are lonely and you don't have bonds, then your mortality risk goes up in a way that's equivalent to being obese or smoking.
But what happens when that bond breaks? Scientists have been looking at this too by asking people to look at photos of their exes. They wanted to see what heartbreak looks like in our brains.
It's literal pain in your brain. So if you look at the parts of the brain that light up, they overlap with the same brain regions that are activated when you feel visceral pain, when you feel actual, like you get a burn or you break a bone.
Heartbreak activates the brain's survival circuit, which is why the body reacts with some of the same symptoms as when we're in danger, pain, or withdrawal. If you've ever had your heart broken, you'll recognize some of the most common symptoms: chest pain, palpitations, lack of appetite, sleep disruption, and low mood. And in extreme cases, there's a type of heart failure triggered by intense emotional or physical stress. Doctors call it broken heart syndrome, and in very rare cases, it can be life-threatening.
If somebody loses a spouse, in the day following the loss, they're at a 21 times higher risk of having a heart attack.
So, how can we get over a broken heart? Because love changes the wiring in your brain, you have to help it reshape the neural patterns you made while you were together with your partner. So all the things your friends tell you to do after a breakup are actually backed up by science.
First, face that hurt. Maybe listen to the tons of love songs about rejection. Take the pictures off your phone. Take the texts off your phone. Don't keep reading them. So you have to rebuild yourself. And finding something that draws your attention that you really like to do. Some people use exercise. Some people become great cooks. Some people travel. If you can travel, that's perfect.
For your brain, the grief of getting over a relationship is similar to when a loved one dies.
It's about the loss of someone or something that is incredibly motivating, rewarding, and meaningful to you. So I will just say one of my favorite quotes is, "Grief is the price that we pay for love."
And Dr. Brown understands that on both a scientific and a deeply personal level. Her second husband, the one that she gave that scan of her brain to, passed away in December 2025.
Knowing that what has happened when, my husband died is that I've lost a sense of myself. And knowing that a big part of my healing is to rebuild a sense of self, that's helped me tremendously. Mm-hmm.